So here we are again, and if you're keeping up with social media, you will probably already know that I've had a bit of a result, and if not, I've had a bit of a result. In fact, I've had a lot of a result. I've been on the Kingsmead Island Lake over at RK Leisure since we were allowed back, you know, whenever that was, end of May was it, something like that, beginning of June. Hunting for one particular fish, a fish called Royd's, biggest fish in the lake, and yesterday morning at 8:30 I bagged him. It was a sort of a culmination, if you like, of the last few weeks. I'd got a spot that was doing really well. It's out off the end of, I say it's off the end of an island, it's out in the middle of the main body of the water. There's a huge sort of gravel and sand hump, if you like, it's massive. And I'd been fishing it from the end of the island at range. It's not really in that swim as such. It's a lot closer to a swim on the sort of more public bank. There's 3 swims, they're called cages, because they've got like wire fences around them, so your gear's all safe when you're boating in and out in case anyone wanders into your swim. Basically they've got a gate on them which you can take your own lock and lock up. I don't really like fishing those swims, although the feature is right in front of one of them. Most people don't fish them, you know, most people fish from the island when there's not a lot of people around and just go out a bit further, which is exactly what I've been doing. If there's a few anglers on the lake, then it becomes tricky. Can't really get away with it because I fish Mondays and Tuesdays and some Wednesdays sometimes. It's usually quite quiet. It's been very quiet the last few weeks, so there's been not enough anglers to think someone's going to go in one of these less offensive swims, if you like. So I've been fishing it off the end of the island, and I think I had 8 fish in 2 trips off of it, so it was going well, you know. And I was putting a bit of bait in when I left, not a lot, just enough to keep them going. Unbeknown to me, somebody else was also fishing the same area when I wasn't there. Fair enough. But I found out they'd also been catching fish, so there's been quite a lot of fish off of this hump, so it was obviously in favour with them. All the bites was between, I think it was 6:30 maybe the earliest, and 7:30 maybe 8 if you were really lucky, so a real short window of opportunity for bites. But you know, I had 3 fish one morning, I had 2 fish another morning, you know, when they were there, they were there. So anyway, I'm fishing this spot and I'm getting good results. Anyway, on my last trip, not this one, the one before, I went down there and we had all those big winds, you know, forecast. They were coming in, I think on the Tuesday, there was like 40 plus, mid 40s mile-an-hour winds coming in, proper weather. And I decided, what made me think of fishing over in the cages swim? I thought because of the wind would be coming straight at the island, there would be nowhere to get out of it. I'd get battered. So I thought if I fished from one of these cages, the one that actually has got the feature in it, then that would give me a side on and I'd be a lot more protected. So I went over there, set up in that swim. Now, I didn't want to sit in there all day, like another 22 hours waiting for the second bite time. So I decided on a plan. The plan was to fish in there till about 9 o'clock in the morning, and then move off and fish somewhere else for the day, because this big wind would be whacking down into the car park corner, a swim called Springgates. And I sort of fancied that the fish might get pushed down with this wind or follow this wind and end up in this corner in numbers. So I've got this 2-part plan. Start off in it's called 37, the swim, don't know why. Start off in 37 in the cage, fish in there. I knew Maddie wouldn't like it, there's nowhere for her to go. I can take her out and take her for a walk round, but if I leave the gate open and she just goes out, then there's dog walkers at the back there, there's a path that goes off ultimately to the railway line at the other end. I didn't want her just trotting about on her own. So I knew she'd be a bit hemmed in and probably, you know, not too happy with it, which she weren't, to be honest. But anyway, so we put the plan into operation, got there, loaded everything up, got round into 37. I was surprised when I was in there, once I put my markers out and I sat behind the rods, how close it really is, that swim's water. You know, this hump is right in front of you and easy casting distance, whereas it's probably over 100 yards from the island. So there we go. All the rods are out. I'm glad I done it, really. no sign of any wind yet. I've been sat right up the other end, sort of waiting for tomorrow lunchtime, really. Which would be a bit of a waste, wouldn't it? Bad enough fishing on yesterday's news. Let alone fishing on tomorrow's. Might change their minds by them. Madeleine is here, look. You little baby. Not a lot to do in the cage though. Might unlock it and take her for a walk in the woods behind in a minute. So we sat in there, we got the canes out, we got them all baited up. I was proper confident of a take from there. And we just sort of sat about and waited for the weather to come in. And, well, we've not had any sort of significant rain yet, but I think it's fair to say it's coming, don't you? That looks pretty moody. Throughout the afternoon it started sort of pitter-pattering with rain a little bit, and then a little bit later on the rain got heavier and heavier and heavier. Till it became this torrential sort of deluge, and the wind started to pick up sort of throughout the evening. And I kept thinking in my mind, you know, that swim down in the car park, that Springgates, it's going to be looking really good in there. But I've got to be on this hump at bite time. I was so confident, you know, of having a bite at that pre-9 o'clock in the morning that I just had to sort of sit it out. But I didn't really unpack an awful lot of stuff. I was ready to go. Anyway, bite time came round in the morning. Nothing happened. I hate fishing to the clock, but that's exactly what I was doing. I'm looking at the phone at the time and thinking, right, it's 7 o'clock, you know, it's 7:30. And you're looking, and then you realise it's 7:33, 7:37, and you're just constantly looking, thinking, I'm moving soon, but I want to bite. Even if I get a bite, I'm moving, even if it means moving back, you know, for the next morning. But it soon became apparent that it wasn't really happening. The wind had got up by now. The wind's proper charging through. I can't see Springgates from in my swim. So I thought what I'll do is I'll go out in the boat, but not as far as my marks. Don't want to spook any fish, you know, it's still bite time. But I'll go out, 3 or 4 rod lengths, and I'll be able to see down. So just shot out in the boat, got round the tree, and I've looked down into the corner, and I can see a bright red van behind the swim, and I know it's Dave. And I know he fishes there quite a lot. It's handy for him, you know, get it straight in after work. I thought, oh bugger, that's that option been taken away from me. So now I'm left sitting in the swim. The weather's on us. My move's gone. And I'm not really sure what to do. I'm sort of out of options. Bite time's trickled away. It's got to 9, 9:30. I'm ready to move. Pissing down with rain. Wind's charging in. I'm thinking, has the ump had it? You know, he's caught fish off of it. I've caught fish off of it. I've now blanked off of it, which is a really bad sign. I'm fishing it really well at that closer range as well. Because it sort of runs across in front. From the other angle, you're fishing staggered along it, but from this particular swim, you're fishing it perfectly, as well as you possibly could. I've seen one fish just off to the side of it the whole time, and I'm really beginning to doubt it all. I'm starting to think I've sort of blown this, you know, we've got this amazing weather coming in. I'm now not on fish. I could have just stayed in the car park when I arrived and waited for the weather, but I didn't want to throw away a whole sort of bite time waiting for the weather to push the fish in there. And there was no guarantee that it would. So now I'm thinking, do you know what, sod it, I'm going to get soaked, you know, I'm going to get battered. So I packed everything up, put it in the boat. I had to bail so much water out of the boat before I could get in it. You know, there was gallons of it in there. A boat's a big area that funnels down into a smaller area. So, you know, if you get 2 inches of rain, you've got about 5-6 inches in the bottom of a boat. It's like a collector of rainwater. So I bailed it all out, loaded it up and just set off into the weather. The rain had actually eased a little bit, so it wasn't too drastic, but the wind was proper getting up by now. Right, Madalena. Not raining too bad at the moment. We've wrapped it all up at 1,000 miles an hour, thrown it in the boat, and we're setting off. Destination unknown. Now where we're going? We're going that way. I think we've got a lot of choice in that matter. 22 mile an hour gusts, constant, 46 mile an hour gusts anytime now. What could possibly go wrong, eh? So I've gone over to the island, the sort of the first island. I've walked back through and I've seen Dave across. I phoned up Dave and chatted with him, and he said he hadn't really seen anything down there on the wind as yet, but it looked really good, and it did look good. It was proper pushing up there. But to be honest, it was the same wind that we'd had on and off for the previous couple of weeks. In fact, 4 or 5 days before, it had been doing exactly the same. It had been howling up there, so it wasn't like it was anything new or fresh. It was just a stronger version, if you like. So anyway, I thought I'm going to try and find fish. So I've gone onto the main point swim and stood there for a bit, not seeing anything, and I've wandered off. And as I've walked past this next swim, it's just on the side of the point. It's called Snags 2. It's a swim that apparently in years gone by, last year even, was a really popular swim and a really, really good swim. But it used to have a lot of weed in it, and the fish used to use it as a funnel coming down the lake. This year, because of the algae, there's been next to no weed in the lake at all. The odd little bit here and there, but no major sort of weed growth. As a result, this swim's not been doing it. I've not seen fish in there. I fished it on the first day of this season, and I saw, I think, one other person that I know of has fished it since. It's just left, you know. Unfortunately, it's got a great big wasp's nest in it, and it's also got a hornet's nest in it, which makes it really tricky for me because I'm mega allergic to wasp venom. Go into anaphylactic shock and that, so it's like not really the one. But anyway, as I was just walking past it like I normally do, I thought, you never stop and look in here, give it a few minutes. So I stood out on the jetty, and there's wasps going past and hornets coming in. It was like the Battle of Bloody Britain in there. Anyway, I stood there, I'd only been stood there about 2 minutes, and a great big mirror come out, stuck its sort of front half out like that, walloped over in the sort of waves by now that were coming. They were going right through the swim. It's come out and gone over, and I thought, oh, that's proper interesting, you know. Don't usually see them here. So I spent a bit more time, and over the next, I don't know, 10-15 minutes, I'd seen 5 or 6 fish in 2 different sets. Right over the back, it's quite a deep swim, and right over the back it shallows up before it gets to the far bank. There's a, maybe call it a bar shelf, if you like, over the far side, which comes off in a couple of stages, drops down, and then drops down again into this big bowl. Most of the fish were on the back there, on the shallower bit. But the bigger fish, I see a couple of good shows. They were in a different spot. They were a lot closer. So I thought, it's got to be worth it, you know. Is it worth sort of risking the wasps? I wasn't sure. Is there any other angle I can get to it? Anyway, I half unloaded the boat, got the dog out, got a few bits and pieces out, got 2 rods out, just put a couple of bright wafters on, whacked them out where the fish had showed, laid them on the floor and set well back. And over the next sort of hour and a half, something like that, I was getting a bit worried. I mean, there was wasps crawling across my tackle box. There was wasps on it. Oh, Maddie had a hornet on her head. She started going mental, and I had to go and knock this hornet off her head. They were crawling on the floor, these wasps. And I thought, I can't risk this. This is suicide. This is stupid. So I come up with a plan. There's another island just along to the left. Call it the second island because it's the second island. And it's only got one little swim on it. Very unpopular little swim. It's horrible to fish. It's a tiny little thing. It's all different levels with roots and stuff. But it gives you the same piece of water where these fish were showing, and a lot closer as well, and hopefully with no wasps. So I made a decision. I went out to where the two areas where the fish were showing, put a couple of marker canes, had a little put my echo sounder on, had a little sonar about, and found a couple of little bits that I was happy with. Quick little prod. I didn't want to do too much because the fish were there, but I didn't want to just be chucking it in the black soup on the bottom. I thought, I'm going to do it properly. So as lightly as I could, I prepared the swim, dropped a couple of marker and a cane on the further spots, and then came back, got the rest of the gear in the boat, got the dog in the boat, and went out into what was now like a severe wind. It's coming through. So I'm on the side end of an island. I'm moving to the next island, so that creates two channels, and the wind's pouring through these two channels. It's proper choppy, and the boat's going up and down. And I'm going out to this closer spot where I've seen the bigger fish. Yeah, I didn't want to do too much there because I thought there's good fish there. I just wanted to sort of drop a rig and shoot into the second island. Anyway, I got out to the spot. I'm just about to drop my rig, and the wind's pushing me backwards. And I've gone like that with the engine just to root forward a little bit. Nothing. Twisted. Nothing. Absolutely dead. Zero. So I bang the top of it, in the time-honoured fashion like you do to get tellies and other stuff working. Bang, bang, bang. Nothing. By now I'm 30 yards further back down the wind, going out of the swim. Tried everything, tried wiggling all the leads, took the battery cover off, checked that. It's completely dead. So I managed to get into my rucksack and get a screwdriver out, and I took the top of the engine off in case it had a loose wire or whatever in there. But I think what had happened is the switch had burnt out. Now, when that happens, it's the only thing really that can go wrong with an electric outboard. You've got a propeller and a switch and some wires, and that's it. And the bloody switch was dead, like totally kaput. Didn't have a spare, and by now I'm spinning and I'm going down in the wind and the boat's rocking. Luckily everything's in it. If it had happened on one of the trips 20 minutes earlier, I'd have still had my dog and half my gear in with the wasps on the island. But as it happens, everything was in the boat. The wind's blowing me down towards the car park end. I got the paddle out and managed to sort of adjust the way I was going so that I basically crashed into the boat launch. And I thought, well, that's it. That's session over. I've still got two markers out on the far bit where the smaller fish were showing. Nothing on the closer bit. I'd put bait out there. I'd managed to sprinkle a bit of bait out before the engine died. But that was it. It was session over. So I'm standing there on the jetty thinking, I can't fish. I ain't got an engine. I haven't got a spare. The switch is gone. I haven't got a spare switch with me, which is really unusual. I usually have one in the glove compartment of my truck. But I'd actually given it to another angler a little while before because he was having problems with his and forgot to put a new one in there. So schoolboy error on my part. So I've only done the one night. I'm stood on the lake. The conditions are perfect. It's a big low pressure. I can see these massive cloud systems coming over. The wind's howling across. And I just thought, I'm proper missing out here. But I didn't have any option. So I just had to put it all in the motor and go home. So at home, obviously, I went through the engines. I tried fixing the engine. I got three. I had three. I had three at that stage, 3 engines. So the one that's just gone, I don't usually use. I don't know why I'd taken it. It was a bigger powered one, so I think I took it because of the wind. And I seem to remember in the back of my head that there was a reason I don't use that one, and I think the reason was that it burns switches really quick. Some sort of something wrong with it. So anyway, I got out my trusted one, my Minn Kota, and the propeller was really sort of, it's usually the housing sits really tight, but I looked at it and I could see the spindle. It's like the propeller was sort of half off, if you like, but it was tight. So anyway, I stripped it down, stripped the propeller off, and I must have found, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 yards of old braid all round the spindle where I'd chopped myself off way back when. I stripped all that out and I tried it, and it was really, really noisy, and it's usually a really quiet engine. So I thought, I can fix this. So I took the actual motor out of the casing, had a bit of a tinker about, put it back together, pulled the handle, nothing. Took it out again, twisted a bit, did a bit of this, did a bit of that, put it back together, dead. I'd completely screwed it. Bear in mind, It's 20 years old, this engine, but it was dead. So that went on the pile with the one I just killed. So now I'm down to one engine. Put a new switch in that, rewired it all up, and it worked. And I thought that'll do, because I had a photographer coming down, John. He was coming down from Wales on the next Monday, which unfortunately was a bank holiday. And he was doing some filming for Monster Particles for me, or with me. And I'd arranged to meet him Monday, 11 o'clock at the lake. I'd now got an engine that works, charged up the battery, got everything ready, you know, spent the rest of the week at home, did a bit of editing, a bit of filming, whatever. Bank holiday Monday, went up the lake, and like I said, it'd been quiet, and I'd been used to getting in the car park and seeing either no one or one car. And there was about 6 or 7 cars there. Obviously it's bank holiday, which is still not busy, but it was busy for me, you know. I was a little bit, oh God. Asked someone who was fishing down that, where is everybody, you know, and he said there was 2 people on the end of the island, one in the swim that I fish along to the hump, one in the main swim, which is called Vipers. He said there was one in Snags 2, and I was like, really? That's the swim where I'd seen the fish, tried to fish and got blown away from, the waspy one? I said, no one's fished there all year. He said, oh yeah, they were out there. They got someone down to treat the wasps' nests, to kill the wasps. He was out there showing them where the wasps' nests were, stood in Snags 2, and a fish jumped, and then another fish jumped. So I was like, oh no one ever looks in there, or hasn't done recently. And he was set up in there, and he'd done a couple of nights. He hadn't caught. And I thought, oh, I'd have gone in there 100% after what I saw, you know, 5 days previous. So I ended up getting John in the boat, got a spare boat as like a ferry behind, put all his gear in that, and his camera gear, because he was staying the night, and his bed and everything. And we went off like charging around the lake, and I went up to the 3rd island at the far end. I thought I'll keep out of everyone's way and get right up the end of the lake. I was there about an hour or so and thought, I really don't fancy this. So I went over to the cage swim and looked at that, and I thought there's 2, it's not big enough for one, you know, one and a dog. And I thought there's 2 of us, 2 bibbies, we can't fit in the swim, he'll have to go in the woods, and it's all going to be tight, and you know, there's no room for filming. And I thought I'll just sort of write off, I'll do me filming, and he's going at midday the next day, and then I'll start doing my own fishing from then. So that's exactly what I did. I went in a swim where I caught that big leather from, a swim called Butcher's, which I hadn't fished for a few weeks because that also had a wasp's nest in it. There was 4 on one island, these nests. They'd all been killed. So I went in there, and I was quite confident in it. It can be a very, very good swim. You know, when the fish are in there, you know they're in there. They top a lot in there, roll, they fizz like mad. The bottom's quite silty. So we set up in there, and we'd done all our filming and that, waiting for the sort of early morning bite time. Now by about midnight, I woke up in the night for whatever, needed a wee or whatever, and got up, had a wee, stood there, looked at the lake for a little bit, and I thought, they're not here. You know, when they're there in the middle of the night, you know they're there, because it's a real close in swim, and you'll see something top in there. So I went back to bed sort of not really expecting a bite, to be honest, and I didn't get a bite. I woke up again at first light. It was a beautiful morning. It had that, I slept out under the stars, we both did, and you get very wet. It's that change around period, and when you get all that moisture comes down, you know, that dew in the morning. So the sleeping bag was soaked, so I got up early and sat there with a cup of tea and a fag. And there was about, I don't know, about a foot and a half of this mist across the water. And where there was a slight breeze, it was channeling all the mist across the lake, and it was going under the bridge, through the gap into Kingsmead 1 next door. And it looked mad. I set the camera up and did a time lapse of it. And it's just like, oh, it looked beautiful. You know, it's all like being dragged across the lake and going through its dead flat calm. It looked absolutely superb, to be honest. But there were no fish showing, and no bubbling, no signs, no liners, nothing really. So, you know, I stuck to my plan. We did all our videoing that we had to do. We covered everything we got to do, and about, I don't know, 11 o'clock or whatever, we were finished. ferried John back to the mainland. Jacko, actually, my mate Jacko popped up to see me, had a chat with him. And then about, I don't know, 1 o'clock, 1:30, put everything in the boat as if I was starting my session, you know, like just pretend that this is the beginning of the trip for me. Nearly everybody else had gone. I think there was one other angler left, and he was on the end of the island. It's called the Den, the swim that I fish along to the hump. He wasn't fishing the hump. I could see his markers out there, he was a lot shorter. So I thought, the cage is an option, 37, you know, could fish the hump from there, if they're still out there. I blanked the last time I'd been on there. Where I'd seen the fish in Snags 2 was an option, but someone's just done 3 nights there. They haven't caught, and they said the fish were showing when they started, but not showing when they'd finished. So I'm thinking, you know, they've been spooked off, they've moved off. Basically, I hadn't got a clue where to go. And I spent most of the day just sort of pottering about, if you like. Ended up right up the end of the lake, and I did see one. I see quite a good mirror go over right out in the middle at the far end. So I got into a swim. There weren't no rush because bite time's not till much later on. And just sat there watching the water for hours. I had a little boat about, and I actually saw one launch out here. Well, I say launch, poked his head out. Quite a good fish. It's not a swim I've ever fished before. It's right up the top end of the lake, the second to last swim. It hardly gets fished. Or anyway, hasn't done this year. It's all quite deep, but I don't know whether I'm searching for features for the sake of it. And when I say deep, I'm only talking about 12 or 13 foot. It's not like it's bottomless. I've seen that we've got tangled up in always trying to find something to fish on. But as always, I'm very undecided. Shocker, eh? Now, despite willing them to show, nothing else showed. And eventually I thought, well, that's all I've seen. So I went out and I put my markers out and I baited up my spots. And I hadn't done my rigs. I was sat there tying new rigs, and I was just about to go out and do the rigs, and I've just all the time I've got this nagging doubt. I'm thinking that one fish, he could have been a foot under the surface, just swimming along, popped his head out. He could be miles away by now. I didn't fancy it, basically, you know. I'd seen this one fish there, and I was trying to talk myself into it. And I thought, all you're doing, Laney, is you're writing off another night in case it's the one, you know. You've seen fish over in Snags 2 last week. You've been catching them off the hump. One of them's got to be a better option. It really has got to be a better option. So I thought, sod it. I'll go down in the cage. Mate is still on the point, and I'll do it. I'll fish in the cage again. So I've gone in the cage, started unloading, putting baits on, ready to go. I've gone out there. I've dropped a cane on the hump. I've come back, and before I've had a chance to put the rig out there, I've looked over and I've seen mate's bivvy come down. It's later in the day, it's tea time by now, which is most people leave in the morning generally, don't they, lunchtime? But he's obviously seen the day out, and I see his bivvy come down, and I thought, now I've got an option. I can go in there, where as soon as he's gone, fish long to here in front of me. That's a better option. You know, it's a much more comfortable area to fish. And I've got, from the island, obviously you've got a lot more scope. You haven't just got this little swim and this little hump. So I did exactly that. Sat there patiently, had a couple of fags, waited till he loaded up his boat, but as he went round the corner, I've jumped in my boat, gone past my cane, dropped one rig, crossed to the island, brought the second one out, other side of the cane, scattered all my bait about, set those 2 rods, which I was confident in. You know, I've done it, I've caught quite a few fish by now doing exactly that. So I thought, you know, and a couple of 30s as well. Back in the pond. There we go. Nice one, eh? Proper chunky across the back. It's got a big, thick old You can't really see that with just the camera on the tripod, but he's got a proper thick pair of shoulders. We like him. We like him a lot. I've had better fish off of it, and I'm thinking in my mind, you know, and it's done a 40 pounder, fully scaled, in the in-between periods from the other guy that was fishing there. So I think there's some good fish getting out there. That's a good chance. And the time of year is right. We're just going into September. Everything's sort of bang on, and I'm thinking that big one's going to come out again. You know, he's been out 4 weeks, I think it was previously. September's my favourite month, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, May and September, the 2 top months of the year for me. But anything from like the beginning of September, you get the big moon in September. You get it depends how it falls. Like this year, I think it was then, and the beginning of October is the harvest moon. But you know, they can fall wherever throughout the month. You got the equinox, and you got my lucky week, which is the week surrounding the 14th. Just has always been a good week for me. So September, in all, top month. So I think I want to get in a position, you know, where I might be getting amongst the bigger fish here. So I've got my 2 rods out there, and I'm sat there thinking, what do I do with this 3rd rod? Now, I didn't really have much of an idea because the rest of this, you get a huge sheet of water in front of this point. The rest of it, I've never really fancied much. It's quite deep. There's not a lot. There's hard patches on the bottom, but it hadn't been on form at all yet this year. And I know that's going to change as the temperatures drop. But, you know, at that stage, I'm thinking, there's nowhere I actually fancy for this rod. And I didn't put it out for hours. I had it leant against the tree. At one stage, I thought I might not bother. I might just fish the 2 rods. And I'm thinking, well, that's bloody stupid. You're on the end of a point. You've got all of this water in front of you. At least put it in the lake. And then I thought, what about that close spot next door, you know? Not the far one, because then you'd be fishing right through the gap and right over the back. But where I'd seen this bigger fish show was only badumph, you know, it's only just there. I thought it's perfect. So I've gone down there and put the rod out there and put, I don't know, 30 baits around it and a bit of particle. I thought that'd do. At least it's in the lake and it's got a chance. But me 2 rods on the hump are obviously me absolute bankers come bite time in the morning. So once again, you know, all sorted, set up the bed chair, thought I'd sleep under the stars again, you know. Yeah, I'm going to get damp throughout the night, but it will soon dry out in the morning. Had a couple of beers, cooked myself a bit of grub, had an early night, went to bed about 9:30, I suppose, something like that. Maddie curled up in the bushes behind me, you know, she's got a bit of real estate to wander around if she wants. Yeah, all was good with the world. Just put my head down on the pillow. I laid there, you know, pulled the old sleeping bag over and just looked out. And through the trees, I could see this massive glow. I'm looking, I think, oh, that moon looks bright. And as it's come up through the trees, it's huge. It's a full moon. It was 1 day off of the actual full moon. So it's, you know, it's enormous, this moon. And at that stage, I hadn't looked at the moon phases. I hadn't even thought about them. And my confidence went, you know, because there hadn't been anything showing, it looked pretty dead, the lake, and my confidence just went like that. You know, I see this proper big full moon coming up over the trees, and I'm just thinking, it's September, it's a full moon, this is good, you know. It really did give me a big confidence boost, just seeing that big lunar monster up there, you know. I sat there, got up again, got the camera out like you do, took a few photos, what have you. And when I did go back to bed, I was feeling a lot better than before and thinking, yeah, it could be on, Laney, it could be on. Anyway, next morning, woke up soaking wet. I was in the bag, but the bag was soaking wet. I moved the pillars, I always put them under my arse so you don't sink down, and there was a dark pillow shape around the outside of where it was soaked, the bed chair, but the pillars was obviously dry from my head. Sat there and put the kettle on and looked out. It was absolutely dead flat calm. Well, I didn't get to do much in the way of videoing yesterday. I was moving about all day just looking, and in the end I decided for my old favourite, back on here fishing out to the feature. By the time I got them out, I was knackered and went to bed. As you can see, a beautiful morning. Just coming up bite time. Come on the roids, eh? As in the fish, not the hemorrhoids. Madeleine is ready, I'm ready. Let's bring it on. Staring out at the lake, praying for something to show. They don't show a lot on that hump, I will say that. You know, it's not like an area where they're booming out and you know you're going to get a bite. It's quite often out of the blue, but I know what time I'm going to get a bite from there. Anyway, I'm sat there till about 8, half 8. I think it got to half 8, which is still well believable for a bite, you know. I've had a single beep. I thought that, you know, I haven't had a beep the whole time. I think that's it. I mean, I've looked at the rods. Nothing, no light, no nothing. Beep. Thought, it's the other rod, you know. Gone down, looked at the other rod, and sure enough, the line's pulling up tight and the tip's going round. And I've hit into this fish. I thought, that's a result. You know, I wasn't even going to cast that rod out. That's all I'm thinking as I'm playing this fish. Thinking, you know, I wasn't even going to put that rod in the lake, and now I'm in. Anyway, as soon as I've hit this fish, it's like hooped over and torn off straight away, no messing about, and it's come straight up and hit the surface. And you know, I mean, when you get fish hit the surface like that, quite often I think in my mind that's a sign of a good fish, you know. But when they hit the surface and you get that bulge in the water, mirror flat calm, and it wasn't like a splash or a swirl, it was a bulge in the water before the back came up, and I thought, whoa, that's pushing some water, that's a good one, that is. And then he charged off, taking a load of line, and managed to stop him, turn him round, and at the last minute, you know, I got him sort of halfway back. He decided he wanted, I don't know where he was going, into the island, if you like. There's an old wooden jetty on the side of this island that you can't really get to from anywhere. It's from days gone by. And he was making his way towards that, and I thought, I'm not really winning this battle, you know. I'm hanging on and he's dictating the pace. So I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in the boat, get round and get a better angle, which is what I'd done. Got round the back, got a better angle, put it in reverse, and sort of pulled him back into this deep channel. Turned the engine off, got him under the boat, and I reckon it must have been, I know it always seems like longer, you know, 2 minutes seems like half an hour, doesn't it, when you're playing a fish, but it must have been 10 minutes on the clock easily after I'd got him in this channel before I even got a glimpse of him. The rod's bent double. Occasionally I'd see the top inch of my leader, which is yay long, and then it'd go down, but only a couple of inches. So he wasn't going down, he's well off the bottom, probably 8 foot off the bottom, but he's not, I can't get him up. And I'm pulling and like front of the boat's going down, the rod's hooped right over. So he's not taking any line, but he's taking me, and he's just plodding over here, and then he's plodding out that way, and then he's plodding back this way. And after about 5 minutes of this, I started to think, there's a very, very good possibility, you know, here that this is him. Just the way, I thought, it's definitely a big, big fish, you know. It's a 40-pounder. You can just tell by the lack of speed, but the power, that plodding, donking about. I thought, this is a big, big fish, and there's a good chance that it's the one I want. Anyway, he's come round and turned, and quite deep down, I've seen him turn over, and I've seen, I mean, bear in mind the water's really green, so it's hard to see, but I've seen this flash of really pale flank. And I thought, the big one's pale, like very pale. And now I've sort of heart in my mouth, you know, playing this fish. Knees have started to go a little bit. And he's come round again. I'm still not winning. And he's come round in front of the boat. And I thought, you've got to give it a little bit more Teddy here, Laney. You know, this could go on forever. And obviously you're thinking about the hook hold by now. So I'll give it a little bit more pressure. And he's come up, and I've seen this great big pail sort of back and side. I thought, it's him. It's him. You know, and half of me's saying, no, it's not, no, it's not. The other half saying, you know it is, deep down, you know it's going to be him. Sure enough, he's eventually come up, mouth's hit the surface, gone up for the big gulp of air, and he's just stopped, and he's laid on the top, this bloody great big pale coloured mirror, and I've just shipped the net out and turned him, and it's that last foot, isn't it? You know, and I can see the boilie, and I can see the hook, I can see the liner on the hook. Like it looked like it was in there, but you're just thinking, oh, I don't want to be watching this, and you're sort of half looking and half not looking, and I've shipped the net out, and good as gold, he's just come over the cord, I've slackened off the tip, sugared the net up, and he's gone in, and I've just thought, that's it, I've done it, you know, that is mission accomplished, you know, dragged it in, oh, it was massive, you know, absolutely filled my land in there, and I thought I got him, I've got roids, just like that, on that, I say off chance, you know, on that rod. It wasn't really, because if matey hadn't have been in there, that would have been the first swim I'd gone to. I'd have probably fished it from the second island back, but that would have been the first area I'd have fished, because that's where I'd seen the bigger fish, you know, and that's what, you know, a new area, when fish move into a new area and start showing quite well, you think they're there for a reason, feeding. So yeah, it wasn't fluke, it was a culmination of events, if you like, but even so, I nearly didn't bother with that rod, and here I am with that rod and with the big one in the net. Rolled up the net, got the mat in the boat, hoofed him out, and that takes some doing as well when you pull out a fish over 50 pounds from a boat, because the boat goes down more than you go up, but I've managed to get him out, get him on the mat. It's only a few yards to the jetty. Steamed back to the jetty, secured him in the net, put a great big, I found this big piece of cast iron, it was part of a barbecue or something, put that on the handle, put my paddle through the spreader block, through the boards on the jetty, nailed it all down basically so that he can't go anywhere, but he was just sat there as good as gold, knackered. Got on the phone, my mate's photographer, he works for, it's Matt, he works for Total Carp, and he fishes just the other end of the village, literally 5 minutes away. Got straight on the phone, get your ass up here, I've got the big one. So I've gone in, started getting everything ready, got a phone call, I'm here, you know, so he's come across. Yeah, and we done the do. It was just like incredible, really. It just, 1 minute you're thinking forward in time, thinking, you know, I've got to do this, what am I going to do there, where am I going to bait, how am I going to get this big fish, and then one bite and bang, it's all over. So we rope the scales to the tree. When I get big fish, I always try and tie them up to a big tree branch, because you can't get a reading, you know. And I'm thinking, I went to the Island Lake for a PB, you know, and I'll put my hands up. I was fishing for weight, which I never usually do. I usually target a fish because I want to catch that fish, probably a big fish, but for, you know, for various reasons. The Island Lake, I went there because this fish, it does 60 pounds. You know, last year it was 60 pounds. It had come out, like I say, a month, 4 weeks before at 54. My personal best 55. And I'm thinking 4 weeks is a long time in the weight of a fish at that time of year. You know, he's probably going to be 56 plus. But I wanted a proper reading, so I've tied the scales up in the tree with a great big rope, and I've swung on myself just to make sure that everything's solid. Plopped him up there, 54 pound 4 ounces. I thought, oh well, you are what you are, you know. Didn't take away anything from it. I'm fishing for a specific creature, and I've caught him, you know. Would have been nice if he was 56. I'd have liked a new PB. It's been a while, but whatever, you know. I was there fishing for roids. I'd caught roids. There's a new rule on the lake that anything over 40 pound has got to be photographed in the water, which, to be honest, was a bit of a nightmare. You know, when you get in the water with a fish, they know they're in the water, they want home. You know, it's not like on the bank. They're worse behaved in the water than they are on the bank, far worse. But anyway, luckily I had Matt with me, who's, you know, professional photographer. And he could adjust for because also in the water you get all that light, you know, you've got the bright surface reflecting back, ruining all your light levels. It's very hard to photograph, get a good photo in the water. But like I say, if you've got someone there who knows what they're doing, then happy days.
you want to do some bits to camera, and then we'll slide her out there and get shots of
What, to mine?
yeah.
No, we're all right, aren't we, people? We've seen a great big mirror carp. We're happy. You don't want to see me get soaking wet again, do you? Do you? Yeah, look, there it is for you. That's what 54 pound of huge great mirror carp looks like. And there you go. That was Royd's. Waded him out into the deeper water. Took a couple of last pics of him as I lowered him in, and away he went. Just like that, I was left thinking, oh, what now? Oh, it's all happened a bit quick. You know, 3 months, 30 fish, and the big one, beginning of September. Still got the prime time to come, all of September and October. Don't really know what to do, to be honest. I could carry on the island lake, other fishing there to catch. I could go on to K1 next door, which is where I'm intending on going for the winter anyway. I could go over there early, get a bit of sort of warmer weather fishing before the winter sets in. I could go over to Raysbury on the North Lake. You know, that's always on my radar, it's on my ticket. So that's a possibility. Yeah, it sort of freed me up, really. I've got options and I haven't got that urgency that you get, you know, will the big one be out this week? I've got to be there this week, the big one's due, that sort of thing, you know. I've had the big one, so it takes away that, like I say, that urgency, that manicness to get down the lake. So yeah, footloose and fancy free, really. I've got loads of filming to do. I've got quite a lot to do for my Patreon channel, which is the other half of this YouTube channel, where we're doing the flick of the tail stories. We've got Black Mirrors, Sun in Eye, all, excuse me, all of that stuff. You know, I'm going to try and get ahead with a few episodes of that. We do, if you don't know what it's about, you know, it's like a story time thing, but we also do a Q&A. It's it must be a good half an hour, I suppose, video on questions and answers that people send in. Someone's already won £100 of mainline in last month. There'll be another £100 mainline prize this month, and a couple of people have won other little things like PB products, tackle bundles and what have you, and that's going really well. I'm really pleased with that. So yeah, there's lots to do, and now I've got the time to do it all. But obviously I'll still be fishing, I'll still be doing vlogs. In fact, I'm going next week. It's just I haven't got a clue where, but I'll be talking to you from somewhere next Monday. So until then, thanks for viewing, and ta-da for now.